You wanted the best. You got the best. The hottest band in the world. It's Kiss. The hard rock and New York City based group started out in 1973 and are still kicking ass today, releasing such great albums as the self-titled, Destroyer, Love Gun, Creatures of the Night. The hits go on and on. Obviously, when people think of Kiss, they think of the original lineup, which is obviously Paul Stanley playing the Star Child, Gene Simmons the Demon, Ace Frehley the Spaceman, now being played by Tommy Thayer, and of course Peter Criss as the Cat, now being played by Eric Singer. There's been numerous lineup changes in Kiss's lifespan, but no matter what era of Kiss you're listening to, you are in for a good time, whether it's the hard rock and face painted era of the 70s, or even the gossied up, glam metal of the 80s. Even that was good. I personally have been a fan of Kiss ever since my brother introduced me to a great movie called Detroit Rock City. Now that is a movie about 4 teenagers who travel from one side of America all the way to Detroit, risking their lives just for a chance to see Kiss, and that's how influential they are. Kiss was also the first concert I ever went to when I was about 10 years old. I just remember standing there in awe, when the curtain falls and the pyros going everywhere. It was just phenomenal. I think one of the key things that makes Kiss so successful, not as just a group, but as a brand, is their longevity and the way that they've managed to stay culturally relevant even since 1973 up until now. But with longevity, that does come with a higher chance of releasing more dud albums. And the album that we're going to be covering today, obviously, is Music from the Elder. Music from the Elder is a 1981 release, and this is Kiss's 9th studio album. It was released by Casablanca Records, who pretty much did all of Kiss's earlier work, and it was produced by Bob Ezrin, who worked with such groups such as Pink Floyd, Alice Cooper, even to go as far as Deftones, 30 Seconds to Mars. Now this is the first record with new drummer Eric Carr after Peter Criss's departure, and not only that, but this is the last full album that Ace Frehley would work on until Kiss reunited in 1996. Now this album was considered a commercial failure amongst many, and most of the tracks on this thing was barely featured in any live performances, apart from one singular one called A World Without Heroes, which featured on an MTV Unplugged appearance. Not only that, it's also disliked by many fans, even going as far as saying it's one of the worst albums not only of Kiss's time, but of all time. But is it really that bad? I think we're going to find out. So I'm going to go ahead and listen to this thing, and then we'll talk about it. Yeah, that was awful. I can't believe I'm about to hate on a Kiss album, but I gotta do it. This album was bad. This album was really bad. Whether it's the terrible lyricism, or even the poor production choices, or misplaced production choices, let alone Paul Stanley's appalling singing in this thing, and even Gene Simmons basically singing comatose or disinterested the entire time. This album is a mess. Just for a little bit of knowledge, this is a concept album. A concept album supposed to listen to first to last to get the full story. They shuffled around this concept album, so both sides of the vinyl started off with, on the A side, The Oath, and the B side, The World Without Heroes, the 2 singles for this album, and it completely messes with the story that they're trying to portray. But, having said that, I went back and listened to the original order, which they did for a 1996 re-release, and it still makes less sense, or at least I don't care enough to go and find out what they're actually talking about. Now the Oath that starts this whole shit show, at least on the vinyl anyway, starts off quite competently. It's got thumping riffs and drums, and Paul Stanley singing quite competently. And then Paul Stanley makes the weird choice of singing in a falsetto that he cannot achieve. Not only is he high-pitched, but he sounds so echoey it sounds like he's singing from behind a door, let alone being buried by this misplaced guitar and drum riff. That is one of many terrible production choices on this album. far as the concept of the story so far, this is a song about a boy who follows a dream to go through an ancient door, to give up his freedom to become a servant for this mystical force, and now he feels really strong and free. Now this is where the whole shuffling up of the album really starts to take its toll, guys. Now in the first track they're talking, oh, I'm really strong, I'm not even afraid. And now in this second track he's talking about, well, actually I'm not that strong and I am kind of afraid, proclaiming I am just a boy, I'm too young to go sailing, which goes against the boy becomes man theme of the first track. And of course, in the second track, Stanley had to come back with those weird falsetto, high-pitched singing. Not only that, the song seems to like they're trying to be experimental, like a Pink Floyd or a Lou Reed type. And that lyric I'll quote before is just touching the surface of awful lyrics in this thing. Now, granted, on the fourth track, some of the drums that Eric Carr is hitting are fantastic, but they just sound so misplaced to whatever else is going on. And as I said, the lyrics in this thing is goddamn awful. A dark light, the sun is turning cool. A dark night is everywhere descending. What the hell? There's also a distracting cowbell throughout this whole thing. You shouldn't use the cowbell unless you're Blue Oyster Cult, because at least they did it right. The evil people are portrayed like a pantomime villain, or like, you know, Gaston without the charisma throughout this whole thing. You know, saying such things as like, wise up, you better watch your step. And the crappy lyrics and the terrible falsetto voices and distortion, it just keeps going, especially with the next song. You know, one of the key breakdowns in the song is just people going, tell me your secret, tell me your secret. And as I said before, there's so many influences on this thing, you can tell. Pink Floyd, David Bowie, Lou Reed, it's just done so horribly. There is one track where it works kind of competently. It's called Under the Rose. That was a pretty decent out. As I said, heavy Pink Floyd and David Bowie influence on this one, but it's got some nice poetic lyrics, you know, and it starts off with like this soft melody that quickly turns into this like melodic but like empowering guitar and drum riff. But it seems to be mixed really well. And even the echoes that they were experimenting with before, it seems to be working really well on this song. Especially the fact that they got rid of the high-pitched voices. But they did not put those influences into good use for very long, considering that the next track, one of their singles, A World Without Heroes, is one of the most boring songs I've ever heard. It's so boring, the guitar sounds like he's playing inside of a tunnel, and the lyrics seem to be just completely ripped out of a Dr. Seuss book. In a world without dreams, things are no more than they seem. And a world without heroes is like a bird without wings. Fuck out of here! Oh god, then. Oh god. We get to the worst song on the album. And it is probably one of the worst songs I've ever heard. Gene Simmons in this song takes all the mistakes they've made in this album thus far and just mushes them together until it forms some sort of disease and just tosses it into your ear. It's a terrible, all over the place mess. It's got weird distorted voices. The worst bass line I've ever fucking heard in a song. And of course you can't forget about those cheesy lines such as, I never said I was more than I am. Do what I want. I don't give a damn. Really, it sounds like a terrible wrestling song from the 80s. Gene, somehow, throughout this whole song, you sound absolutely tone deaf. Now, as you can see, I've not spoke much about the concept of the story in this thing so far because none of it makes sense. It's literally, he believes in himself, he doesn't believe in himself. Someone tells him he doesn't believe in himself, he believes in himself again. Someone tells him he should believe in himself, he doesn't believe in himself. Someone tells him off. Until, of course, we get to the end song when he believes in himself. Come on! And it just so happens that the last song on the fucking album is actually really good. Kiss do nothing new here, okay? They do nothing new, this song adds nothing to it. But they do what they do best. They keep it simple and keep it stupid. But there is a really nice like finger snapping, you know, like breakdown that leads into this like really cool but chunky like bass line that almost saves Gene Simmons from his terrible performance on, of course, Mr. Blackwell, the previous song we spoke about. It's not the best Kiss song in the world, but it's a really big welcome highlight to this terrible album. It's just a shame that this song is right at the end. And I would go as far as saying it's the only Kiss song on the album. If I was to sum up this album, it sounds like a terrible musical, okay? You know, as cool as it is to hear Kiss play in a different way and experiment, you can't do that by ripping out the entire core of what makes Kiss Kiss. Worst song on this album is that Mr. Blackwell. That was obviously done by Gene Simmons. That song was god awful. Please do not listen to it. I had to listen to it several times, and now my ears bleed. And personal highlight, of course, the last song, which is called I. It's the only good song on the album. Don't listen to this album. It's terrible. And just because I fucking hate this album doesn't mean that you're going to as well. So maybe you should go and check it out and let me know down in the comments what you think. And if you've already heard the album, I'm very sorry, but you should also do the same. And why not leave a suggestion on an album that I should review in the future? Maybe I'll review your album. Who knows? I can do anything. But until then, my name has been Vinny. Ah! No! Stop playing! Ah!